This is the Varghmir Saga, Chapter 5, The Seer's Secret. Welcome once more, brave souls, to the halls of Varghmir, where legends are forged in blood and steel, and where even death may be but a doorway to greater purpose. I am your guide through these northern tales. When last we met in these windswept lands, sacrifice wore the face of love, and prophecy found its fulfillment in the most unexpected of ways. Young Eirik faced the terrible truth of his father's sins, that Magnus had murdered Bjorn Ravenvik to protect a 20-year-old bargain with darkness itself. In trial by combat, Sigrid fell to her brother's undead blade, and in his anguish, Eirik fulfilled the raven's prophecy by spilling his own blood upon the sacred ground. But in the north, the gods still watch over those who prove themselves worthy, and Odin All-Father has little patience for the schemes of lesser powers. Today's saga is The Seer's Secret, where blood spilled in noble sacrifice opens the gates of Valhalla itself, where ancient wisdom reveals its true purpose at last, and where the gods themselves intervene in the affairs of mortals. Gather close to the fire, for this tale speaks of Odin's ravens, of the halls of the honored dead, and of the moment when divine will shapes the fate of clans. The story continues in the heartbeat after Eirik's blade found his heart. Darkness took him, but it was not the darkness of death. It was the darkness of the void between worlds, the space where ravens fly carrying messages between the realms of gods and men. Eirik felt himself falling, not down, but inward, through layers of reality he had never known existed. Then suddenly he stood. Before him stretched a vast hall, its roof held up by pillars carved from the bones of primordial giants. The walls gleamed with weapons of every description, swords and axes, spears and shields, each one bearing the story of its wielder's deeds, etched in runic script that glowed with inner fire. Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain. At the hall's far end sat a figure that made Eirik's soul tremble with recognition. Upon a throne carved from a single piece of world tree sat Odin All-Father, his one good eye burning like a star, his ravens Hugin and Munin perched on either side. His broad-brimmed hat cast deep shadows across his weathered face, but when he spoke, his voice carried the authority of wind and storm. "Eirik, son of Magnus, son of the line of Varghmir," Odin said, and each word rang like hammer strikes on an anvil. "You have spilled your blood in noble sacrifice, fulfilled the prophecy my ravens spoke, and proven yourself worthy to feast in these halls. But tell me, young warrior, is this truly where your heart would rest?" Around the great hall, the Einherjar, the chosen slain, turned to watch this exchange. Eirik saw warriors from every age of the world, berserkers with foam still on their lips, jarls with crowns of iron, simple farmers who had died defending their homes with nothing but courage and a rusty blade. "My lord," Eirik said, dropping to one knee before the throne, "I am honored beyond measure to stand in this place. But my people, they still face the darkness. Without me, who will stand between them and the servants of the serpent?" Odin smiled, and in that expression was all the wild wisdom of storms and battlefields. "You think like a warrior, boy, but not yet like a king. Tell me, what did you learn from the blood you spilled upon the sacred ground?" Eirik thought of that moment when steel pierced his heart, of the choice that had led him there. That some sacrifices open doors that should remain closed, my lord. That blood given freely carries more power than blood taken by force. And what of the raven's warning? The first blood you would spill would not be your enemies. It was my own blood, lord. Spilled not in hate, but in love. Not in conquest, but in protection. Odin nodded approvingly. The prophecy is fulfilled. The debt is paid. But prophecies, like ravens, often carry deeper meanings than first appear. He gestured, and one of his ravens, Eirik thought it might be Hugin, flew down to perch on the young warrior's shoulder. "Look through my raven's eyes," Odin commanded. "See what transpires in the world you left behind." The hall of Valhalla faded, replaced by the harbor of Varghmir. Eirik saw his own body lying motionless in the combat circle, his father's blade still protruding from his chest. But around him, something extraordinary was happening. Sigrid Ravenvik, whose life had been ebbing away from Bjorn's wound, suddenly drew a gasping breath. Her eyes flew open, bright and clear and very much alive. The wound in her chest, which should have been fatal, had sealed itself, not with ice or magic, but with something simpler. The mingled blood from the ritual they had shared, the brother bond forged in desperation, had created something powerful enough to bind both their souls to life. But as she lived, Eirik's body grew cold. "You see the choice before you," Odin said as the vision faded. "Your sacrifice has saved her, as you intended. The blood bond you forged holds fast, her life for yours, freely given. You may remain here, in the Hall of Heroes, and feast with the greatest warriors of all time until Ragnarok comes. Or, Eirik asked, though he already knew the answer. Or you may return to the world of the living, but know that the balance must be maintained. The bond you created was forged in sacrifice. It can only be broken by choice. Both of you must agree to release the other, or both must choose to live with the consequences." Eirik felt the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders, like a cloak of lead. To remain in Valhalla would mean eternal glory, an end to struggle and suffering. But to return, "What does the All-Father counsel?" he asked. Odin's laugh was like the rumble of distant thunder. "I counsel nothing, son of wolves. The choice is yours alone, as all the greatest choices must be. But know this, the old seer spoke truly when she said, 'Great darkness stirs in the deep waters.' Jormungandr feels the tremors of change, senses that the ordered world above grows stronger. Soon it will rise to test whether mortals have learned to stand together, or if they will fall divided as they have so often before." The All-Father stood from his throne, and Eirik saw that he was even taller than the songs claimed, a giant among giants, with shoulders broad enough to bear the weight of all 9 worlds. "If you return, you will not go unchanged. The blood you spilled on sacred ground, witnessed by gods and men alike, has marked you. You will carry a portion of this hall's power back with you. Not magic, but something deeper. The strength to unite what has been divided, the wisdom to see beyond old grudges, the courage to stand when others would fall." "And the price?" Eirik asked, for he had learned that all gifts from the gods came with costs. "The price is that you can never be just a warrior again. You will be a leader, a king in all but name, carrying the hopes and fears of your people. The blood bond with Sigrid Ravenvik will remain until you both choose to release it, and she will carry some of the same burden, some of the same responsibility." Eirik thought of his father, worn down by secrets and the weight of leadership. He thought of Sigrid, brave and proud and willing to die for people not even her own clan. He thought of all the warriors, all the families, all the children who would suffer if the clans fell to division when the serpent finally rose. "I choose to return," he said simply. Odin nodded, as if he had expected no other answer. "Then go with my blessing, son of Varghmir. But remember, you carry not just your own fate now, but the fate of all who look to you for leadership. Use that burden well." The All-Father raised his spear, Gungnir, and its point blazed with light brighter than the sun. Hugin, Munin, guide this worthy soul back to the realm of the living. Let it be written in the sagas that Odin All-Father holds the line of Varghmir in high regard. The ravens cried out as one, their voices carrying harmonics that spoke of wind between worlds, of passages through the void, of the thin places where life touches death, and both are transformed. Darkness took him again, but this time it was the darkness of return, of rebirth, of a soul choosing duty over rest. When Eirik's eyes opened, undead Bjorn was gone, turned to ash by Odin's light. Gravnar Skuldvein lay broken at the circle's edge, his power shattered by divine grace. Magnus knelt beside his son's body, and the old seer muttered prayers to gods whose names had been forgotten by younger generations. But as consciousness returned, Eirik felt the changes Odin had promised. His vision seemed sharper, able to pick out details in the darkness that should have been invisible. His hearing caught whispered conversations from across the harbor, and in his mind he could sense something new, a connection, faint but definite, linking him to another soul nearby. "Sigrid," he said, sitting up despite Magnus's attempts to keep him still. "Where is she?" "Here," came a voice from beyond the circle. Sigrid Ravenvik approached slowly, and Eirik could see that she too had been changed by their shared experience. Her movements carried a new confidence, a certainty that spoke of someone who had looked beyond the veil and returned with knowledge. "The blood bond," she said without preamble. "I can feel it. We are linked until we choose otherwise." "Do you understand what that means?" Eirik asked, getting to his feet. The sword wound in his chest was gone, healed without so much as a scar, but he remembered every sensation of steel piercing flesh. "It means we succeeded in something neither of us intended," Sigrid replied with a wry smile. "We have become true siblings, bound not by birth but by choice and sacrifice. It means that what threatens one threatens both, and what strengthens one strengthens both." Magnus stood slowly, his weathered face struggling to comprehend what had happened to his son. "The wound. How do you live? I saw the blade pierce your heart." "Odin's will," Eirik said simply. "The All-Father had need of warriors in Midgard, not just in his hall. But Father, the darkness Gravnar spoke of is real. Jormungandr stirs beneath the waves, and when it rises, all the clans must stand together or fall divided." From the harbor came the sound of splintering wood. The dark ships, those vessels of nightmare and shadow, were breaking apart without their master's will to sustain them. Their undead crews had simply ceased to exist, returned to whatever rest they had been denied in life. Gravnar himself lay crumpled at the circle's edge, not destroyed, but diminished, reduced to something barely more substantial than shadow. As Eirik approached, the Death Lord's pale eyes flickered with awareness. "You think you have won?" Gravnar whispered, his voice like wind through a graveyard. "You think the gods' favor changes anything?" "I think," Eirik said calmly, "that you underestimated the power of willing sacrifice. Your master feeds on fear and despair, on souls taken by force, but souls given freely, in service to something greater than themselves." He shrugged. "Those carry a different kind of power. My master will send others," Gravnar warned. "Servants more terrible than I, forces that even your All-Father's blessing cannot stand against." "Perhaps," Eirik agreed, "but when they come, they will not find divided clans squabbling over old grievances. They will find a people united, standing together against the dark." He placed his hand on Gravnar's brow, and the Death Lord screamed as divine light burned through him. Not destruction, but purification, stripping away the corruption that had bound him to the serpent's service. leaving only the faint echo of whatever mortal man he had once been. "Your service to the darkness ends here," Eirik said firmly. "Return to whatever rest was stolen from you, and trouble the living no more." Gravnar looked up at him with eyes that, for just a moment, flickered with something human. "Thank you," he breathed, and then crumbled to ash that the wind scattered across the harbor waters. In the days that followed, word of the battle at Varghmir spread throughout the northern lands. The story grew in the telling, as stories do, but the essential truth remained. The clans could stand together when they chose to, and the gods still watched over those who proved themselves worthy. Jarl Morgrim Ravenvik arrived with his warriors, expecting to find his daughter dead and his enemies triumphant. Instead, he found Sigrid very much alive, standing beside the young man who had been willing to die for her sake. The blood feud that had poisoned relations between the clans for a generation died in that moment, replaced by something stronger. The bond between warriors who had faced death together and emerged transformed. The alliance that formed in those days was unlike anything the North had seen since the age of the great kings. Not born of conquest or marriage treaties, but forged in shared sacrifice and mutual respect, Steelhold sent their master smiths to forge new weapons blessed with old runes. Stormfjord brought ships and sailors who knew the secret currents of the eastern seas. Even smaller clans, bands of hunters and fishermen who owed allegiance to no jarl, sent representatives to pledge their support. But it was the old Seer who provided the greatest revelation of all. On the third day after the battle, she approached Eirik as he stood watch on the harbor wall, gazing toward the eastern horizon, where troubling reports spoke of strange weather and unnatural tides. "You did well, my lord," she said, and in her voice he heard something he had never noticed before. The accent of one who had learned a northern tongue, but had been born speaking something else entirely. "You are not from here," he observed. "Not originally." She smiled, pulling back her hood to reveal features that spoke of southern lands, of places where the sun burned bright and the sea stayed warm even in winter. "I was born in the far reaches of the world, where my people keep watch against different threats. But all the peoples of the earth face the same enemy in the end: the hunger that devours light, the cold that seeks to swallow all warmth, the voice that whispers that resistance is futile." "How long have you been here?" Sigrid asked, approaching to stand beside them. 23 years, the seer replied. "Ever since the seers of my homeland felt the serpent's first stirring, ever since the prophecies spoke of a bloodline in the north that might stand against what was coming." She looked at Eirik with eyes that held depths of knowledge. "Your mother was not born to this land either, my lord. She came from the same southern realm that birthed me, carrying in her veins the legacy of kings who once held back the tide of darkness." Eirik felt pieces of a vast puzzle clicking into place. "You guided her here, guided her to my father. Love needs no guidance," the seer said gently, "but sometimes it requires opportunity. Your parents found each other because they were meant to find each other, because the song their union would create was needed in the world." "And now?" Sigrid asked. "What do your prophecies say about what comes next?" The seer was quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the eastern waters, where storm clouds gathered, despite the clear weather closer to shore. "They say that the true test is yet to come. Jormungandr has felt the change in the world above, sensed that mortals grow stronger and more unified. It will not wait much longer to rise and test whether your unity can withstand the ultimate trial." "How long do we have?" Eirik asked. "1 season, perhaps 2. The serpent moves slowly when it moves at all, but when it does act, it acts with the force of earthquakes and tidal waves. She turned to face them both, and in her expression was all the weight of prophecy and hope. Use the time well. The alliance you have forged is strong, but it will need to be stronger still. And you, my lord, she fixed Eirik with her knowing gaze, you will need to embrace what you are becoming, not just a warrior or even a leader, but something the North has not seen for generations, a true king. That night, as the northern lights danced across the sky in patterns that seemed to tell stories of battles yet to come, Eirik and Sigrid stood together on the walls of Varghmir, watching the horizon and feeling the weight of destiny settling around them like a cloak. "Do you regret it?" Sigrid asked quietly. "The bond we forged, the path it has set us on?" Eirik considered the question, thinking of the quiet life he might have lived, the simple choices that would no longer be available to him. "I regret that it was necessary," he said at last. "I regret the suffering that brought us to that moment." But the bond itself? He turned to look at her, and in his eyes she saw not the boy who had sworn his oath beneath the stars, but the man, the king, he was becoming. "No, I think it may be the best thing either of us ever did." She smiled, and for the first time since her brother's death, it was a smile without shadows. "Then let us make it count. When the serpent rises, when the final test comes, let it find us ready." Above them, a raven cried out in the darkness, not a warning this time, but something that might have been approval. The prophecies were fulfilled, the alliances forged, the king awakened. But in the deep places of the world, ancient coils stirred, and the true battle for the fate of all things drew ever closer. And so ends another chapter in the Varghmir saga. But the greatest challenges still lie ahead. Eirik has walked in the halls of Valhalla and returned blessed by Odin himself, while Sigrid has been granted a second chance at life through the power of willing sacrifice. The clans unite, the alliances strengthen, and the North prepares for what may be its final trial. But in the depths of the Eastern Sea, something vast and ancient begins to stir. Jormungandr, the world serpent, has felt the change in the world above, and its patience wears thin. The true test of unity, courage, and the strength of mortal will approaches like a storm on the horizon. Will the bonds forged in blood and blessed by the gods prove strong enough to stand against the hunger that would devour all? Can a young king and his oath sister rally the scattered clans in time to face what rises from the deep? These questions and more await answers in the tales to come. Until then, may Odin's ravens watch over you. May your alliances prove strong as steel, and may the fire of courage burn bright in your hearts. The saga continues. End of Chapter 5. Next chapter, preview. The alliance grows stronger, but disturbing news comes from the southern seas. Fishing villages speak of waters that boil without fire, of massive shapes moving beneath the waves, and in the deep places of the earth, something that has slept for millennia finally opens its eyes. In The Serpent Stirs, the true enemy shows its face at last. If you wish to walk further into the saga, subscribe and return when the raven calls again.